Our first speaker will be Shane Hanofee. Shane's a self-taught botanist with extensive knowledge and experience working with the plants of the northern Sierra Nevada. He formerly served as president of the CMPS Redbud chapter, as well as several chairships and leadership roles. He also serves as the social media chair of the CMPS Bryophyte chapter. Shane is widely known for his personal in-depth social media outreach aimed at teaching the general public about the flora of California. His personal projects include the Flora of Nevada County, which is nearing completion. And for his talk today, Shane will share rediscoveries, range extensions, and otherwise notable collections while creating the upcoming Flora of Nevada County. Please help welcome Shane.
Hi, everyone. I can't believe I got woos. That's pretty amazing. Okay, I'm really excited to be here to kick off the new discoveries session. I'm going to go over a selection of some of the more notable discoveries made during the production of my upcoming Flora of Nevada County. So when narrowing down all the plants I wanted to cover given this opportunity, I found that my short list was not short at all. So please know I can only cover a small amount of the discoveries which will qualify under the title of this here talk. And while I'd like to introduce you to the county and to talk about the process of making the flora, you'll just have to find me after the talk if you're interested. I'm on a strict time limit. We got to jump right into this, and I'm deathly afraid of Sam's red light in my face. There we go. Before I officially begin, I want to mention how on each of these slides I've displayed the CalFlora distribution map. The blue dots on that map represent herbarium vouchers or CalFlora observations. The yellow squares are CMPS rare plant inventory quads if they apply, and I represent my finds with the black dot that I added on there. So we're going to start with Lysomachia thursiflora. This is a plant I happened to stumble upon circumstantially this past summer. In fact, the vast majority of the plants I'll be speaking about were found circumstantially. It was often in the process of failing to find my actual target that day. At the time I found this, it wasn't on my radar at all, but I figured it's so distinctive and beautiful that I probably would have no trouble figuring out what it was. And I was right, but I wasn't expecting Lysomachia. It's a very morphologically diverse genus. Nothing looks like another Lysomachia. This species is widespread overall. It's circumboreal in distribution, but it's rare in California. So it was thought that the southern limit was around the Lassen National Park, Lake Almanor area, but here it was 65 miles south of there in Nevada County. It was growing at the margins of a series of lakes formed in granite bowls at about 5,500 feet. These lakes are a botanical treasure trove. There's floating sphagnum mats and several other rare taxa occur there, often in abundance. There's Brasinia schreiberii, Schonoplectus subterminalis, Lycopus uniflorus, Carex lasiocarpa, Carex lamosa, Rhynchospora alba, all around this group of lakes. So most of those, as well as the other associates found near this occurrence, are also found associated with populations growing with the Lysomachia far north of Nevada County. So it's not all that surprising that Lysomachia thursiflora occurs with them here as well. Next, we have Monardella candicans. This is another one I wasn't aware of before I happened upon it. I thought maybe I'd found a color morph of the known but uncommon Monardella breweri, which is similar in form, another annual, but has purple flowers and darker colored inflorescence bracts. So Monardella candicans here has a 4.3 rare plant ranking, but it's perhaps more rare than that suggests, and I'm of the opinion that it deserves a reassessment. So to support this, I point to how it's been collected relatively few times in the past 40 years. Mine's only the fourth collection across its entire range in that time. There's only 5 iNaturalist observations for it. It was collected relatively frequently from the 1850s to the 1960s, but then the collections mostly just dry up after that. Most of those historic collections are from the southern Sierras, but it has been found a few times more northerly. It's been found in a few places in El Dorado County and once in Placer County in the 1880s. The collection I made last year is the farthest north this California endemic has ever been found, so a new northern extent in its entire range. It was growing on steep grassy slopes below super dense live oak woodland, about 400 feet in elevation. So next is Carex sheldonii. This is a rhizomatous sedge with hairy peri that's mostly known from the Modoc Plateau ecoregion in California, but there is one collection from Placer County as well. That one was made in 1949, and it has a locality note of wet grassy places under ponderosa pine near Baxter, which, if you're familiar with that area, doesn't narrow it down at all. People have been looking to relocate that population since, and so far it's been unsuccessful to the point where it's widely considered to be extirpated. So with that population missing, the southern extent receded to Gray Gull, which is at the Plumas-Sierra County border. That is until this past year when I found a patch of this sedge growing outside of Truckee in the understory of a mixed pine forest, which exists as an island of moisture and an otherwise bone-dry sagebrush scrub. This new population is not particularly expansive, but it is the new southern extent for the species in its entire range, speaking known extant populations, because if the Placer County population is ever relocated, the Nevada County population will become the second most southerly. Next here is another sedge. This one might have been called Carex mendecinensis until Carex certostachya was described in 2013 by Peter Zika and Lawrence Janeway, who's around here somewhere. Carex certostachya is relatively easy to recognize for its linear, well-spaced peri and drooping spikelets. The previously known populations of this plant were clustered in Butte and Yuba counties, and then they skipped Nevada and Placer counties and showed up again in El Dorado County to the south. So this discovery serves to slightly close the gap between the two clusters. This was found in a seasonal seep in mixed conifer forest, a rather unassuming place, really. And there's lots of other similar habitats between the two clusters, and they might be further connected with more field work, but the truth is it might be more easier said than done because the Bear and American Rivers watersheds are very difficult to traverse, and some places are just downright inaccessible. Okay, Streptanthus longisolicuus. I did not find this one in the county first. Dean Taylor collected it before me in 2006 and in 2013, so making mine the third known population in the county. It seems to like the same habitat in all three places, artificial openings in conifer forest between 4,000 and 5,000 feet. So this might be a species that's actually disturbance adapted and whose distribution has grown sparse due to fire suppression and overdense forests in the area. But the answer to the question of how best to conserve this species seems to not have been fully answered yet. There is another question asked about this species, and this comes from the CNPS Rare Plant Inventory. Does this plant occur in Nevada, Plumas, or Yuba counties? Well, I think we can definitively answer the question when it comes to Nevada County. The next plant is a whopper of a range extension. We're talking 130-ish miles from the closest known population. This here is Selaginella asprella. I also didn't collect this one first in the county when I found it this past summer. That would have been Lowell Ahart. He collected it in 2011, but called it Selaginella wallacei, which is really funny because I also thought I was collecting Selaginella wallacei when I picked this up, and I only later became aware of Lowell's collection. Both were made in the same exact location. This long-awned, glaucous, superfragile spike moss didn't key to wallacei when I tried to confirm my gestalt, and I quickly found the correct identity. Where it occurs, it's extremely abundant, which is puzzling then how it evaded detection until recently. It grows on granitic batholiths at around 5,000 to 6,000 feet. A couple weeks after finding this population in Nevada County, I found it again in Placer County. And this time, it wasn't difficult to find because my eyes were primed with all the same habitat and same associations there. And a couple weeks after that, I found another population in Nevada County, also supremely abundant and not terribly far away from the first population, but definitely a lot more difficult to access, and it's a lot more understandable why that one was never found. So I talked to some SoCal bot friends who are more familiar with this plant, where it more frequently is encountered in the southern Sierra, in the transverse and peninsular ranges, and our plants seem to be a bit different from those. The more northerly plants seem to lack leaf-based hairs that are mentioned in the description and have longer awns than is typical, even though the awns of this species are longer than any other Selaginella in California. Perhaps with the disjunction in these morphological differences, there's some cryptic diversity at play, but it's also a plant that reproduces from spores, and lots of plants that come from spores, the mosses and fern allies, show odd scattered distribution, so maybe it is all just Selaginella asperella. In any case, I think it's worthy of more study. Okay, next, this is a white-flowered ceanothus in the subgenus Cerastes. It's mounding. It's reminiscent of the local Ceanothus arcuatus, or how Ceanothus cuneatus appears when it grows on serpentine, but the leaves are prominently toothed, and those teeth are variable in number and in placement. It's also growing pretty much at the state border in a decidedly Great Basin ecotone, which is a place you would not expect to find either one of these. So what you're looking at is the first ever record in the state for California bakeri. The story behind this taxon is pretty remarkable. It was first discovered in Carson City, Nevada in 1903 by C.F. Baker. Edward Green dubbed it Ceanothus bakeri soon thereafter, but he never formally published that name. Green also made the suggestion that the origin of this plant is that it's a hybrid between Ceanothus prostratus and either Ceanothus cuneatus or Ceanothus pauciflorus. The name was eventually published, though, 1942 by Howard McMinn. During the whole publication ordeal, the plant had not been seen since that type collection. In fact, it wasn't found again until 110 years later when Jeff Bisbee, after several unsuccessful attempts to find the type locality, found a new population on the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. He published that find in Madronio as a noteworthy collection. And then I come along 10 years after that and find another population, but this time just barely across the state border into California, making a state record. Now, it's only 1 mile across the state border, but that still counts. When I find it, I don't know what it is, but I send it to Jeff, and he immediately recognizes his old friend. According to him, this new population lends significant weight to the hybrid parent being cuneatus over pauciflorus. As while neither is found anywhere near the bakeri localities, cuneatus could have more easily reached into the east side of the Sierra via the Feather River Canyon at a time when conditions were more appropriate for it to occur there. This would have been before the Sierras fully uplifted, and then as the full heights of the Sierra crest were reached, the climate would have dried, and while this is bad news for cuneatus, bakeri had adaptations to help it cling to survival. This population closes the gap between extant occurrences of cuneatus and the known populations of bakeri. But one issue with this plant is that there is another named hybrid of the same parentage, and that is called Ceanothus flexilis. Flexilis is more known from the western slope of the Sierra, where both parents do still occur in proximity. We might be talking about 2 separate hybrid events, but of the same parents. If it's ever shown to be a relative certainty that the parents of bakeri are prostratus and cuneatus, I'm not sure how that nomenclature would end up resolved, or if it even needs resolution, but there might be some taxonomic rules that would be applicable here. I just don't know what they are. Okay, next is a plant that I found only a couple months ago, which I believe has a very strong chance of being undescribed. It's an Arenaria, that much I'm sure. It's in the family Caryophyllaceae. It keys quite cleanly in both Jepson and FNA to Arenaria paluticola, and as you can see from that key right there, there's only 3 Arenaria recognized as occurring in California, according to the Jepson manual. Paluticola, if it were to be that, is actually a very rare taxon found in the Bay Area in very few locations. And the plant picture was growing in a perennial spring at the head of a meadow system, otherwise completely surrounded by Jeffrey pine forest. The linear leaves and the single axillary flowers rule out the vast majority of candidates in Arenaria. There are a few similar species found in the highlands of Central and South America, though. So it is possible that it's a very disjunct occurrence of one of those, at least as much of a chance as it's a very odd population of paluticola. I've only begun to start to research this, but I wanted to put it on people's radar, especially if you're working on the east side of the Sierra and see a nice perennial seep. Take a look for this plant. I've looked to see if maybe it's been collected before from a similar habitat in a nearby locale, but so far I've turned up nothing. It's very tedious to look through undetermined Arenaria because most of these are old collections of Aeromogone and Spergularia and Sabulina, which all used to be Arenaria. Treatments of Arenaria are typically quite old and a bit obtuse, and there do not seem to be any active researchers working with this group to consult. So I'll work on it if I have to do it myself, but it's a bit daunting. Maybe I'll be presenting about it at NorCalBot 2035. But luckily, with our next and final plant, I did have the chance to work with a very active researcher, and this Navarretia, which is new to science, will be published in the coming months. I'd like to introduce you to what Lee Johnson and myself will be dubbing Navarretia fugax. Fugax roughly translates to ephemeral, and it's a very fitting name for a number of reasons. The species seems to be endemic to gabbro soils and is only known from one population near Grass Valley in Nevada County. Though we scoured all of the publicly accessible habitat, no more plants could be found. It was perhaps a bit more widespread once, but this habitat has been considerably reduced. There is much potential land for it to occur under private ownership, so the hope is that more plants will be found eventually, and it's not just this one population. Here it grows with federally endangered plants like Carrick xerophila and Calistegia stabinsii, but it may be fewer in number and smaller in range than either of them. It flowers for only 1 month a year, one of the hottest months to be out in the open chaparral. And on top of that, the flowers are only open for 2 to 3 hours a day during the hottest part of the day. Perhaps it's no wonder then why it wasn't found until 2012. Lee, who has reworked Navaredia to a considerable degree in his career, had just finished annotating nearly every Navaredia collection and every major and most minor herbaria for his own revisions. And then I brought this plant to his attention, and he had never seen it before. So unless some obscure collection slipped past us, it's never been collected prior to the type, which is exceedingly rare. Usually newly described taxa have been collected before, sometimes even frequently so, and they're just sitting in herbaria under outdated names or sitting at the genus level waiting for proper determination, but not this guy. Because of the assemblage of rare taxa found at the type locality, it's not a particularly overlooked area either. And yet it sat undetected, only ephemerally noticeable in the best of circumstances, and perhaps ephemeral to this world, given the speed at which the walls of development and land conversion are closing in around it. To make a novel species known to the botanical world and to have a chance of protecting it before its loss is one of the great joys to have come out of this project. The degree of likelihood that it might never have been known before going extinct was pretty high. And this is one of the important results of floristic works and why I will always encourage folks to go out and collect, observe, document, and explore. Because we can't conserve the plants we don't know exist, and we can't know it exists without a passionate and driven community of botanists and supporters of the botanical sciences like the sort that's assembled in this room today, and the ones that are listening on Zoom. So, with that, I want to thank you very much for inviting me to come share this with you all. Feel free to reach out to me through any of these avenues on that slide, and I'll happily take any questions you might have.
Very neat talk. Thank you. I'm curious for the brand new Navaritia that you're describing, if you've noticed any pollinators visiting it or have guesses as to what would pollinate it.
That's a great question. I don't know. Every time I collected it, it was not open. The flowers were not open. It was actually through Lee. He eventually pinned down the time when the flowers are actually open. And as far as I know, we haven't noticed any pollinators. Clearly, it's very specialized, whatever it is, to be flying around at that time of day. But we don't know.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Sean, did you tell them about your fescue find?
The fescue find? You mean your fescue find that I collected for you?
You found it. It's what may be California's first record of Festuca filiformis.
I did say I had to cut down the number of plants I talk about today.
It's a weed.
Hey, Shane.
Hi, Jordan.
Hey. Thanks so much for the talk. This is really awesome. And I just want to say it's really inspiring to see you do all this floristic work in Northern California. So just thank you for all you do. A question for you. Are you including bryophytes in your floristic studies? And have you made any cool collections at all? I know you know about bryophytes, Shane. Come on.
Well, the answer is circumstantially. It's not really been a focus. There's enough vascular taxa out there to keep me busy. Eventually, one day, it would be really fun. I have found a couple of mosses and liverworts that haven't been found in the county before, but you'll have to excuse me if I can't recall them offhand. I'll look them up and let you know. But yeah, it would be great to do bryoflora. I mean, you know, I'm up here talking about how few and far between vascular floristic work is, and I mean, bryophytes are a step above that. So come to Nevada County. You can collect bryophytes there. I'll show you the good places.
That sounds great. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shane.